Jazmin posted on soulofhershoe.com, and the two waited for their driver to arrive and take them to the airport. The plane ride was pleasant. Rick and Jazmin were getting along great. They talked about the baby the entire plane ride, and neither said anything about the earlier conversation they'd had about his deceit. Rick was nervous about how Jazmin would react to what he was about to expose to her. He didn't want to lose her, and if it meant revealing everything about him, then that's exactly what he would do. When the two arrived at Rick's apartment building in the city, they sat in the car a few moments, and he asked Jazmin again if she was sure she wanted to be let into his life. She smiled and replied, "Of course." The doorman walked forward, opened the car door, and greeted them both. "Good morning, Mr. Greenberg and Miss Reed. I hope your flight wasn't too bad." Jazmin smiled as she looked at the doorman and then back at Rick. The driver handed the bags to the bellhop, as Rick grabbed Jazmin by her hand and escorted her into the apartment building. "Wow," she said, entering the building. It was like nothing she'd ever seen before. The lobby was something out of a movie based in Abu Dhabi. She felt like she had spoken too soon and perhaps wasn't ready for all of this. "So wait, how much did you pay for your apartment, if you don't mind me asking?" Rick laughed shyly and answered, "Nothing." "Whatever, Rick. I mean, I'm not trying to be all up in your pockets. If you don't feel comfortable telling me, that's fine. I didn't mean to pry." He laughed again, playfully wrapping his arms around her neck. "Babe, I'm not holding out on you. I actually didn't pay anything for my apartment. Now the building itself is another story." "Excuse me? Wait, you own the entire building?" she asked. "Yes. Is that a problem?" Rick looked at her intently. He was looking for approval, but didn't really need it. No," she struggled to say. She had no idea what she had signed herself and her unborn child up for, but she was ready. She started to wonder what else he had up his sleeve. She knew he was worth millions, but for some reason, she couldn't grasp the reality of it all. Rick was filthy rich. Jazmin had many clients, but none of them owned the luxury apartments they lived in. She was treated like a queen all the way up to the penthouse apartment. Everyone she passed greeted her by her last name. She felt anxious and excited all at the same time. She couldn't wait to see Rick's apartment. She'd always thought if she ever did decide to settle down, it would be with a man of wealth, but she never imagined anything like this. Rick grabbed her by her hands and asked her again if she was ready. She smiled, gave him a flirtatious kiss on the cheek, and said, "Yes." When he opened the door, her eyes said all that needed to be said. It was absolutely beautiful. Her thoughts immediately shifted to what Queenie would say. She knew he would have a fit because she was enjoying the pleasure of being around name brands the two of them only dreamed of. Jazmin had money, but Rick had FU money. She walked in and was again greeted by the staff. She had a housekeeper, but Rick had several of them. They treated her as if they'd known her for years. Rick had great taste. No wonder he complimented me on my art, she thought. He was a fan as well. She had art, but his collection put hers to shame. There were several originals worth millions. She imagined he paid more for his furniture alone than she did for her whole house. Jazmin was so distracted and overwhelmed that she didn't notice Rick had disappeared. It wasn't until she felt a little lightheaded and had to sit down that she realized she didn't see him. The staff noticed her sudden need to sit down and helped her over to the sofa. Rick was in his study making a few last-minute phone calls when his butler came in and alerted him to Jazmin's condition. Rick ran as quickly as possible to her side. He came in smiling at Jazmin. He didn't think it would be too much for her, but then again, it could have been. Almost an entire year had gone by, and she knew nothing about this side of his life. He hoped she wouldn't resent him for it. "You okay, baby?" he asked. "Yes," she responded, smiling. "I had no idea this is what you had in mind when you said you'd show me who you really are. Queenie would kill me if he knew I was experiencing such taste and style." "Did you design this all yourself?" "No," he answered with a chuckle. "I had help from a famous interior designer." Jazmin was on cloud nine. She felt like when she was a kid on vacation one summer with her parents in Paris. They introduced her at a very young age to the fine arts, and her mother made sure she knew what real style and fashion was. It was her birthright. Jazmin's mother used to travel to Paris every summer with her sisters when they were growing up, so it was only right that she showed Jazmin some of the culture she was introduced to. The chef had prepared lunch for the two. While the two were waiting to be served, Jazmin couldn't help but feel like she was at a five-star restaurant. The food was delicious. After the two finished having lunch, Rick showed her the rest of the apartment. Jazmin was even more impressed. The tour essentially ended in the bedroom. He couldn't wait to get her alone. They were in love, and nothing would get in the way of that, at least if they could help it. The next morning, Rick asked that breakfast be prepared and served in bed for the two of them. He had a whole day planned for Jazmin. He wanted to take her shopping and then to a show. He hoped she would let him start buying some things for the baby, but he knew he might be pushing it. She was only a month or so pregnant, but he was excited and ready to be a father. After breakfast, Rick and Jazmin got dressed and headed out to do some shopping downtown. He wanted Jazmin to get whatever she wanted. He'd bought her things here and there since they had been together, but she never knew he could actually buy whatever he wanted. They were having a ball. They talked, laughed, and were thoroughly enjoying each other's company. That is until Rick got the call he had been dreading. "Hello, Richard. You didn't think I wouldn't find out you were back in town, now did you?" the familiar voice asked. His day was suddenly ruined. It wasn't that he had planned on hiding it any longer from Jazmin, but he wanted to do it on his own time. Knowing Lynette, she knew he wasn't alone. He immediately hung up and went on about his business with Jazmin. Later that evening, the two caught a show Jazmin wanted to check out at the theater. Although she wasn't too keen on stage plays, she wanted to see the new one she'd heard about in a magazine her marketing firm had done work for a few weeks prior. She was getting hungry again, but Rick already had that covered. He had made dinner reservations for them at one of his favorite restaurants, the same one where he'd found his current chef. Jazmin was excited and enjoying every moment of their mini getaway. When they arrived and were about to enter the restaurant, Rick's phone rang again. He already knew who it was, so he ignored the call. It was just like Lynette to think everything had to be on her time. He wasn't about to have her mess things up with Jazmin. He was sick of her antics. He was going to wait to tell Jazmin, but it was probably too late now. By the time he looked up to open his mouth to lay everything out on the table, Lynette and her handler were walking through the door. Lynette may have been crazy, but she was just as fierce and diva-like as Jazmin. She pranced up to their table and introduced herself. "Hello, darling. I didn't know you had a companion with you," she said. Jazmin smiled sarcastically. She was pregnant and not in the mood for old girlfriends holding grudges. She gave some of her own shade right back. "I'm sorry. Are you and Rick old friends?" she asked. Lynette giggled as she extended her hand to shake Jazmin's. "Oh, absolutely not, silly. I'm Lynette. Lynette Greenberg, as in Richard's ex-wife." If looks could kill, Jazmin wanted nothing more than to slap the piss out of Rick, but she was just too classy for that. She smiled at Lynette, and as hard as it was to play it off, she did just that. She was too good on her feet to let another woman see her sweat or think she had won one over on her. She learned that from years of dealing with Susan. "Oh, you're Lynette? It's so nice to finally meet you, sweetie. Rick, or Richard as you call him, has told me so many wonderful things about you," she said sarcastically. Lynette knew immediately Jazmin was no rookie and decided to back off, but more importantly decided to address Rick, which was why she decided to ambush his dinner to begin with. She felt like he owed her more money than what she got in their divorce settlement. Lynette was a money-hungry leech. Good thing for Rick is that he picked it up early in their marriage and got out as fast as he could. They dated only a year before they got married. He knew it was a bad idea, but because the two came from similar family backgrounds, he thought they would make a good fit. They both came from money, but Lynette's family lost everything after her father's company went bankrupt. Lynette's father, Harold, was a cold-hearted businessman who did what he thought he had to do to become successful, not realizing that the things he was doing would eventually catch up to him. He taught Lynette to go after the money, and that she did until Rick picked up on her shady ways. Wife or not, he knew she was only in it for a payday, and Rick needed more than that, which is one of the reasons he loved Jazmin so much. Jazz could hold her own, and she preferred it that way. As soon as Lynette started talking about money, Jazmin stepped in. She had heard enough. The hormones started to take over. She was hungry, tired, and Lynette was interrupting her mini vacation. She let her have it, and by the time she was done, Lynette was excusing herself. "Excuse me, Lynn, or whatever your name is. You won't be getting a dime from Rick. Not today, tomorrow, or ever. I'm so disappointed. I took you for a woman who had her own, but clearly you're in here begging a man who doesn't want anything to do with you, for money. Girl, bye. Where is your dignity? You know what? How about this? Since you need money so bad and I just can't deal with all this tacky begging, I'll write you a check. Is that fair? Because my baby is hungry and you are holding up our dinner," Jazmin says while rubbing her belly. Lynette didn't say a word. She stared at Jazmin's belly, then at Rick while she fought back the tears. She was clearly bothered by the fact that Jazmin was pregnant and that Rick appeared to be happy. It wasn't about the money. It was more about the fact that he left her and made it very clear that he didn't want to be with her anymore. The two of them settled their divorce. Rick only had to give her $2 million, and he left and never looked back. "She's pregnant with your baby, Rick?" Lynette asked. Rick didn't say a word. He had enough of Lynette, but knew if he said anything, Jazmin would probably stab him with one of the table knives. But she got the hint, and clearly a mouthful from Jazmin. She got herself together and left. As soon as she finally left out of the door, Jazmin went off. "So was this your fucking idea of letting me in and telling me everything about you?" she asked. She ripped Rick a new one, ordered some dinner, and didn't say another word to him. She was ready to get back to Baltimore. She was clueless why Rick was keeping things from her. She knew he loved her, but couldn't understand why he didn't trust her by telling her the truth. She wanted to get back to his place so she could get some sleep.